Welcome to Paws Unplugged, the podcast that dares to go raw, real, and radically different in dog care. We're here to question everything from vaccines to kibble and get back to nature's blueprint for raising healthy, thriving dogs.
If you're a dog lover who's ready to think outside the vet's office, challenge the norm, and embrace the untamed path, you're in the right place. Come join us twice a month as we unplug from the undoctorated narrative and dive into the wild world of natural rearing. It's time to let instinct lead. Let's get unplugged. Disclaimer. Obviously, we aren't licensed medical professionals, and of course, the information we're sharing is for educational purposes only. How you choose for yourself or your dog is your personal choice, so pick wisely.
Welcome to our podcast, Paws Unplugged. This is episode 1, and this is about our natural rearing philosophy. So, what is natural rearing? Let's talk about that. Let's define what natural rearing in dogs is.
Let's break this down. First off, I'm just so excited to be out here. Like, this has been something we've talked about for so long. And I think now is the perfect time to bring this to the forefront. Like, people are getting so aware of what's going on in the dog medical world that we now have this platform and the ability to really showcase and educate people on how they can take their dog's health into their own hands.
Absolutely.
And it's not difficult, right? It's not difficult at all.
It's not. And you're right. We are in a period of time right now, which is remarkable, where people are waking up from their slumber and waking up from decades of misinformation. And they are looking for truth, and they are looking for answers, and they need help, education, and support. And so we're going to give it to them. And I am so excited too. Like, this is one of the most exciting things I've ever done. So I cannot wait for everybody.
It's going to be raw and real.
Yes. Yes. There's going to be some hard truths in here, and some things are going to be hard to hear, but that's okay, because once you realize that you can't do anything about the past, but going forward, you can make changes for the better. You're going to feel real good about yourself that you have decided to make these changes.
Yep, I'm so excited about this. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and break down what natural rearing is all about. Like, for me, I always think of natural rearing as the dog's natural, strong immune system. Like, what does that entail? What would be a couple of your key things in that platform of elements, we would say, would be ideal in the natural rearing philosophy?
Right. So natural rearing, in my view, is raising dogs as close to nature as possible. How do the wild canines live? And how can I mimic that for my dog in our home, in our family? So I do have a list of what key points of natural rearing are, but whenever you're not sure, just go back to nature. What are the dogs in nature doing? Because they are thriving and they are healthy. They are not sick like our pets. They are not sick like our dogs that are, living in our homes with us. So what's the difference? So we use them as our model. And the very first thing is, what do you say? Most important thing is?
Well, most important thing is the species appropriate raw diet.
Yes.
Dogs are carnivores. Like, let's just get that clear. Yes, they can eat some fruits and vegetables, but it's not a priority for them. That's a secondary food for them.
Right.
They want meat. They want organs. They want bones that are digestible. A cow is not a species a dog would actually go hunt, right? Like, that would not be a species they would go and hunt. But, fowl, birds, like all the things like that, rodents, those are kind of things that you would think of. Now, are we buying rodents for our dogs to eat? Well, some of us are. Some of us aren't. Yeah. But we'll go in more detail of what the raw food pyramid should look like.
Right.
It'll be completely different than what your advisors would be telling you. But that would be my number one.
Number one.
Appropriate.
That's my number one too. Without proper nutrition, bioavailable proper nutrition that the dogs are designed to digest, they're not going to have health no matter what you're doing. So that is your foundation of natural rearing, is get them on a diet that they were designed to eat.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, it actually gets real easy from there.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you're going
for us, it's again, um having a toxic free environment. What does that look
yes,
like? I'm not just talking about your home and your backyard. I'm talking about their immune system, not putting any kind of poisons or toxicities within their into their body. So I'm not injecting certain things on them. I'm not applying anything on them. I'm not giving them certain kind of RX medications. I'm allowing their bodies to build the immunity naturally through the food and the environment that they're in.
right. So that's easy. Just don't purposefully put the toxins in their body. Just don't do it. That's very easy. And so when we talk about a toxic free environment, it can come from many angles. So there's the vaccines and the flea and tick and heartworm. We're going to avoid those. Then there is toxins within our home. We want to keep that for not just our dogs, but our families too. Our lawns, we don't want to be applying pesticides and herbicides to the lawns. And then there's a hidden one that people don't think about very often. And that's vitamins and
Oh, yes.
supplements.
Oh, yes. The
Uh,
synthetic vitamins and
yes.
supplements. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just causes havoc on their liver and kidney. It has to work overtime, and which doesn't allow the digestive system to work properly. So we get a lot of inflammation starting to build up when that
Right.
starts happening.
Yeah. And you're adding those vitamins on to all the other toxins that just exist in the world. And it really becomes a toxic overload. Sometimes some supplements are needed, and that's understandable, but the dogs should be getting all the nutrition from their diet. Um, and you should not be worried about what vitamins do I need to give to my dog to make sure they're getting everything.
Yeah.
So,
Or probiotic, like
yeah. So yeah, I mean, green tripe. I mean, my goodness,
perfect.
that's what the dogs eat to get their healthy guts. So so we've got raw feeding, we've got a toxic free environment.
Yep.
What's next
I
on
mean,
the
it
list?
leads right into, making sure they have fresh water, right?
Right. Yes.
Water is essential for dogs. You'll notice with raw fed dogs, though, they don't drink as much water because they get a lot of the moisture from the actual food itself.
Right.
Um, but when we are putting water down for our pooches, right, definitely make sure that I don't have tap water, like city tap water where I live. I have a well. So I'm pretty fortunate that our well water has tested very, very good. But if I did live within like the suburbs or city, I would definitely get some kind of filtration to eliminate some of those chemicals they put into tap water. I don't want my dogs drinking it because they don't have anywhere else to go and, quench their
Yeah.
thirst off of some other watered area.
Tap water, when you live in the city, is probably some of the most unhealthy stuff you can actually put in your body. Hopefully, they'll be getting fluoride out of the water soon, which, the EPA has now ruled it a neurotoxin, which we've been saying for a very long time. But even if that comes out, there is still tons of chemical. They take the wastewater and clean it and turn it into drinking water. So that has got to have a lot of chemicals in it to get through the process of it being clean. But then you have to think of any medication that anybody is taking, hormones or cholesterol medicine or anything like that, that is going into the wastewater, and that does not all get filtered out in the drinking water. So you are consuming toxins, cleaning toxins, you're consuming medications, tons of pharmaceuticals. Like,
I mean, you're consuming bacteria,
yes,
parasites, E. coli. Like, there's so much that's within the water system, and that might get through because it becomes accustomed to all the chemicals they use. It's kind of
it
like
does.
an antibiotics, right? It's the same thing. If you
Right.
overuse these typical antibiotics, pretty soon your body becomes immune to it. It's
Right.
the same thing with
Yeah,
our water
absolutely.
system.
And And we know this stuff all gets through because they have acceptable limits that they allow of each one of those things in the water. And so we know all of this is in the water. I am on a well just like you. Our well water has tested great. I love that because I don't, that's one thing I don't have to worry about. But like you said, my raw fed dogs do not drink much water unless it's a hot summer day, 100 degrees, and they're out playing. My dogs drink a couple licks of water a couple times a day, and
Yeah.
they're getting so much water from their food that they don't seek out water
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
rarely.
It's something a lot of our dog parents that we either mentor or they buy puppies from us. That's some of the feedback that we get. Like, they're not drinking enough water.
Yeah.
What is this an issue? You know, then you have to educate more. But okay, so water. So we have food, water, environment. What would be the next one, do you think?
I think one of the most important things that's also one of the absolute easiest aspects of natural rearing is getting your dog outside, getting your dog's paws on the ground, grounded to the earth, connected to the earth, um, where they have fresh air and they are in the sun. I mean, these are easy. They're outside. It's not complicated. Their their paws are grounded to the earth. They're getting sunshine, breathing
Yeah,
fresh air.
I love that. You know, like everybody is always talking about, well, we need to give our dogs vitamin D. You know, like what? No, why don't you just let them go outside like a dog, lay on
Right.
the ground, and yes, lay in the dirt. It's okay. It really kind of drives me crazy when I hear parents like, well, they're gonna get so dirty out there. You know, like
Yeah.
they're a dog. You
They're
know,
a
like
dog. The I
wipe them
love
off.
watching my dogs get dirty. They digging and they're yeah, when I know when they're digging, they're just deep connected into the earth. Their mind is going crazy,
Yeah.
their bodies are going crazy. They're so happy. They're being a dog.
What
And
I
you know what?
love about when they're doing those types of activities outside is that their rhythm in their body and their immune system is connecting to the earth.
Right.
And this is actually so healing to a dog. If a dog is not doing this, this is where you run into problems with dogs. They're starting to have more aches and pains. They're starting to have more inflammation. They're
Right.
starting to have more skin issues. There's lots of things on
So
top
many
of the things
things.
we already talked about, right? If you're not doing X, Y, and Z, and then you're not allowing them to earth and ground outside, it just contributes into that storm.
How many hours a day are dogs in the wild spent how many hours a day they spend connected to the earth?
So all day, like pretty
All of
much,
them.
yeah, unless they go
20
into their den. But even in their
even
den, they're
then
in
they're
the
still
yeah,
connected. So our dogs are spending 20, 22 hours a day in the house missing the connection from the earth because grounding the main benefit of grounding is it reduces inflammation, and we know inflammation is the root of all illness. So the more time that they spend connected to the earth, the more inflammation is being reduced. And that is their natural state, is to be connected 24/7 to the earth. And when we bring them inside, of course, they live with us, they're going to come inside. But when they have very minimal time outside, they are missing one of the key components in their health.
yeah. I mean, if you live in an apartment, okay, so I don't want to make it sound like, oh gosh, because you live in an apartment, you're going to have such horrible issues with your dog. You just need to put it into your routine, morning and evening, if you work, right, during the day, that it's not a 10, 15 minutes outside. Like you're spending a good hour or so walking your dog, going to a park, sitting down on a bench and allowing your dog to kind of roll around or sit down right on the grass itself. Just be still. Like I feel dogs just being still on the ground, just that internal rhythm, reconnecting with Mother Earth will change so much in your dog's health that no matter where you live, you can still do these things. If you're in a city, they have city parks, right?
Right.
They provide so much for animals today, and then on the weekends, go somewhere, like
Right.
drive somewhere. You've made a commitment to a dog. give that dog the same commitment by giving it a lifestyle that it also needs.
Right, absolutely. And, something that's simple to do too, if you do live in an apartment and you can't get out much, get a grounding mat for the dog, and give him a nice raw meaty bone to lay there on the grounding mat for 20 or 30 minutes and chew it up, and, get him, as grounded as much as they can, whatever method you need to use. But
That's a
getting them
great
outside,
idea.
yeah,
That's a
getting them
great
out.
idea.
Getting them outside, though, is more beneficial for their mental health, their physical health. Um, they need that. They need to sniff everything. They need to move. They need to be on the move. The dogs in the wild, they're on the move all the time. Yeah, and so we're keeping our dogs. I mean, don't get me wrong. I can sit on the couch with my golden retrievers for hours, but I do prioritize outdoor time for them above all else.
Yeah. Because you have 4 Goldens, correct? And then you have a couple Aussies. But like with us, we have our primary dogs, we have 6. And so they run around outside together a lot throughout our day. They don't live outside, they live under my roof.
Right.
Our dogs are very spoiled in the domestic side of having a dog as a pet, but I do give at least 90% of the natural lifestyle as much as possible. The other 10 is like, oh, I'm buying a bed for you. I'm, like those kind of
right.
silly things,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. We spoil our dogs. We do, they sleep in our beds. They watch TV on the couch with us, all that kind of stuff. But we can't forget that they are dogs and that their bodies and their brains need certain things, that they are not human. And, they have to have certain things in order to be well. So
100% agree.
So,
okay. So the next one,
the
last, I think it's probably the last one, right? I would think is exercise.
Right.
I mean, we kind of talked about that, walking them and things like that, but exercise is not just physical, it's mental.
Yes.
Right. So training, I find, is a huge component when owning a dog, because you're mentally getting them to use their brains to do certain tasks that requires a lot of mental energy to wear them down. If you start taking your dogs to get trained and you go to the next level, or you start doing your own training with your dog, you will find your dog sleeps better, cooperates better, is just overall a happier dog.
Yes, they're much more well-behaved. I always say a tired dog is a well-behaved dog. If you have a dog with pent-up energy because they're not properly exercised physically or mentally, your dog is getting into trouble. Your dog is not enjoyable. No one's having fun. But exercise, you nailed it. They need the physical and the mental exercise, and training is 20 minutes of training is just as exhausting to a dog as 20 minutes of fetch. So, there's lots of ways with, depending on the weather, you can do training inside, you can do training outside, there's no excuse not to exercise your dog. There's just not. They have to have that and it's good for their bodies, for their muscles and their joints to exercise, and their heart and their cardiovascular. They need exercise.
Also good. Yeah, it's also good for the owner. Like both of you going out and doing something together, right?
Yes.
If you're doing the exercise, just walking 45 minutes can be the biggest change in your dog as well. So I don't physically work out. Like, I'm not a runner. I'm not doing any of those kind of things. I have 6 dogs. We don't walk them all at the same time. We walk 2 or 3 and then, 3 on another walk, or 1 by itself. It all depends on our day. But I live in a rural area, so it's a dirt road. It's high altitude and it snows a lot, and it's just kind of windy where we are.
It's very windy where you are. Yes.
Yeah. But that's no excuse for us not getting out. So we walk our dogs 45 minutes. Well, it's actually, about a little over 45 minutes, under an hour. But from my doorstep to the stop sign down my road is exactly 1 mile. And so we walk that and we walk back. In the
That's awesome.
summertime, it's nice because I have a creek in my property. We have creeks all around. I have a golden doodle. They love the water. We can walk off leash because our dogs do pretty well with that. They'll run into the water, and that alone is huge. And let me tell you, you have your dog that can physically play in something they love, like
Yes.
water. That dog will be knocked out for hours, either when you get in the car or when you get into your home,
Yes,
either or.
absolutely. And it's so great for bonding with your dog too. Anytime you're spending meaningful time with your dog, whether it's walking them, training them, playing fetch with them, it is bonding. And for both human and dog, you become very bonded. So it's got a physical benefits, mental, emotional benefits, and you got to make the effort. Just, um, make sure that your dog is getting what your dog needs.
So these are basic, easy, simple principles, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Very,
They're very simple principles.
it's so simple. And we're not leaving out the hard parts. We're not saving them for later. This is what natural rearing is. This, there's nothing more to it. It's simple. It's, we've been taught generationally to think that to do something right, it's going to be very complicated and there's a lot of steps involved and you have to do so many things to make sure everything is just right. And this is kind of just the opposite, where we are learning that getting back to nature is very easy and very simple, and you don't need to be intimidated by it. There's nothing difficult about this.
Not at all. So the first question I have for you is, how did you get here? Like, what started your journey in a nutshell, like in a quick
Yeah,
little
I'll
nutshell?
just I have a pretty extensive story, and I'm just going to make it real quick for you. Back in 2012, my youngest of four boys went in for his 6 month well check, to get his vaccines, and he came out of that with brain damage, immune system damage, and nervous system damage. And he had gotten by 6 months old, he had gotten a combined of 28 vaccines in his little 6 month old body. By 18 months, he was diagnosed with autism. Um, During this time, I was pretty devastated that my beautiful baby was so sick and everything was wrong with him. So I began researching. Said he wasn't born this way. So what happened? Began researching. And learning the truth. And it was really hard for me to learn the truth because I had caused that damage to my child. I had allowed that to happen. I had allowed him to be poisoned and injured. And, that's for a whole nother conversation. But that began my entire journey into waking up from the lies and deception of big pharma, of the medical mafia, and a lot of people that were looking for profit but not health. So that began my journey. And once you learn, you know, if it's for your family, then you start learning, oh, it's the same thing for my dogs and my cats and my pets, and it all just spills into everything. So unfortunately, it took a pretty bad scenario to wake me out of my brainwashed slumber that I was in. But I thank God that I did wake up out of it. And so many people's lives have changed since then because of it. And yeah, I'm just grateful that he's okay now. We healed him. That was a journey in itself as well. But it was a process to wake up from a lifetime of everything I thought I was doing right. What about you? How did you get here?
Well, you and I have very similar stories. I have a son that is or was diagnosed severely autistic. I have multiple tests and records that show that vaccines caused it. So in 2005, he was diagnosed severely autistic. And in 2005, we had adopted or purchase a dog. At the time, you would purchase off of the newspaper, right? That's where you went and found dogs, was in the
Right.
newspaper. And it was a military family. They had a golden retriever. It was something my husband always wanted, was a golden retriever. So we purchased the 6-month-old dog, and they didn't give us anything, no records, no nothing, nothing. We just bought the dog for like $200 and took it home. And it was a great dog, smart dog. And about a month later, we took him into the vet and got his just a checkup. And they were like, well, because we don't have immunization records, we should give him all his vaccines so that we know that he's protected. And as a good dog parent and citizen, I did exactly what I was told, just
Right.
like I did with my child. So my
Right.
son had not been diagnosed at the time. We got this dog, we did what we were supposed to do. And then my son got diagnosed. So it was like within a month from each other, all of this happened. And all of a sudden, when you start connecting the dots, right, you start opening up Pandora's box and you're diving down all these dark tunnels and rabbit holes, they like to call them, um, you start putting two and two together. And so here I had this perfect little puppy, 6-month-old dog, listening, obeying, doing all the good things, to now acting just like my autistic son, not listening, getting into things, just
Right.
overly hyper, wasn't eating correctly. It was just the oddest thing I've ever seen. And when we had our son going more natural, I found a natural veterinarian, and he literally told me my dog was vaccine injured.
Right.
And so that dog only lived to not even 2 years old. It ended up having a brain tumor, having a stroke, and then we had to put it down. And that changed everything for us, because a dog doesn't die before they're two,
No.
unless it's poisoned, and a lot of things are caused to that dog, which
Right.
again I did because I thought I was a good parent, just like a dog parent, just like I thought I was a good parent to my kid, right?
Right. That's
And both of them just opened up this big chapter for us. And it's been a journey ever since. So we've been doing all the natural things for 20 years now. And I'll never go back. Like never
no.
go back.
Once you know the truth, you can't unknow the truth. You can't.
Exactly.
I mean,
And
it's
it's night and day with our dogs, right? Like
right.
you see this
Absolutely.
from dogs that you've had, that you follow the routines and the schedules that the veterinarians put together, feeding them the appropriate balanced kibble, and you see all these issues happening. And then when you take all of it away, just like you take Western medicine away, all of a sudden you see everybody's healing,
Right.
everybody's getting better, things are improving. Now, is my son still autistic? Yes, he still is, but he's at a much higher level now, like he wasn't before. And all my dogs have very, very strong immunes, and I don't use healthcare for them ever, ever.
You don't need it. And so, I mean, I wish I could have gotten an award for being a dog mom, because I was that person. I was that woman who, like, I took them in like the minute their shots were due to get them up to date. I spent a ton of money on quality kibble. That was the best kibble money could buy. I love my dogs. I wanted the best for them. But every one of those dogs that I had that I raised that way, they had allergies. They had autoimmune disorders. I had one that was turned extremely aggressive, and I had several with cancer, and amongst other things too, yeast problems. Just all of those dogs that I raised conventionally had extreme medical problems and died way before their time. My dogs now, they're just living their best life, healthy. We don't even have a vet. I don't need a vet. If something minor comes up, I have something here to treat them with, but I don't even deal with that. And, it's day and night, like you said, on the health of the dogs being conventionally raised and naturally raised. And it makes a lot of sense as to why we would see the stark difference between the two.
Big time, big time. So, like, we were part of the the society of doing what's right, listening to a narrative, if we want to call it that, right? Or living in fear, so we were doing everything we thought was correct,
Right.
because only to learn it's like cradle to grave, right? Now it's from litter to euthanization. I mean, that's what it is. And you are just a number and another patient that's profitable to the system.
Correct.
And it's interesting because you and I work with a lot of people, like a lot of people, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
In the dog world. And the number one thing I find, like two things. Balance and complete is something that they like will die on a hill for their dog.
Right.
Is that raw food balance and complete? Because my
Right.
package here says balance and complete.
Right.
And parvo. Like
Yes.
those are the two things that scare a dog parent to death.
Yes. And we know that fear is what sells vaccines.
Yep.
Fear drives us to make decisions we would not otherwise make. Um, and so fear is the root of their business, the root of their profit, which is why I wanted to talk about, like, how did we get here as a society? Why is it normal for us to take our dogs in, take our puppies in at 6, 8, 12, 14, 16 weeks and get 4 rounds of vaccines by the time they're 4 months old, and then get them every year after that, apply this flea tick and heartworm medication to them. That is, dogs are dropping dead everywhere from that stuff, but people are still doing it. Why are we feeding crunchy little cereal to the dogs thinking that we're giving them good nutrition? Like, how did we get here? Where did this start? Why is this normal now?
Well, I truly believe it's just, it's the conditioning of the fear. And it's like anything in a human's life, right? If you don't get your kids the measles vaccines, they're going to get the measles. If you don't get this, it's going to, all these things are going to happen. Yet, in the dog world, it's 1,000 times worse because they want to use mandations on people. It's mandated. You need this. It's law. Like they start honing down on that. And it starts scaring the people. Well, I have to do this. I have to do this. Otherwise, they're going to fine me, or I'm not going to be able to go to a vet, or I'm not going to be able to go away on a vacation because I can't take my dog to a kennel. Like all these things compile onto the fear that they think there's absolutely no other option but to follow this. Or this is the health. You're a bad parent, bad dog parent if you don't follow this schedule.
Right.
And that's the part that really pisses me off, is the whole fear factor of it all. It's a generational habit that we just keep passing down onto the next generation. If I'm a dog owner, my kid becomes a dog owner when they're adult, I'm starting to tell them what they have to do with their dog, and they start following that. But they don't connect the dots when my dog Fido had cancer at 3 years old and ended up dying. And then my daughter got a dog, and at 2 years old, it dropped dead with a heart attack. And then they get another dog, and it does the exact same thing. Like I've talked to dog parents that have had 3 or 4 dogs die of the same thing at the same time, yet
Right.
they don't connect the dots of all the what they're not doing naturally rearing, right? They're doing the complete opposite, going in and getting all the toxicities, going in and feeding all the special diet, kibble, dog cereal, right? Like giving them all these things. And it's just condition.
It's
They're just conditioned.
I see it as three things. There's fear, there's shame, and there's generational conditioning. So back in the early 1900s, Rockefeller, in his oil industry, he wanted to get into the medical industry because that was a good profitable place to be. But there was one problem with that: anything natural couldn't be patented. So him and his millions or billions of dollars, basically, he took over the medical schools, and their curriculum. And he designed a curriculum that was based around pharmaceuticals that could be patented. And not only that, but he started putting out the narrative that anybody who used natural remedies or homeopathy was a quack. They're weirdos. Have you ever noticed, which I know you have, that people call what we do quackery, or they call it witchcraft, or they call it whatever. They're like, because it's not a pharmaceutical, it's some kind of weird.
Or it's you're an irresponsible dog parent.
Oh, well, yeah, that just comes as a given because,
yeah,
but
you're
that's
so irresponsible. You're going to kill your dog's going to kill all the dogs.
You're going to kill your dog and mine at the same time. But this came from generations of when they set that narrative 100 years ago so that they could shut down anybody who was going to interfere with their profits. So our grandparents were lied to, but that's how they raised their children. Our parents were lied to, but that's how they raised us. I used to take my kids when they were little into to the veterinarian to get their puppy shots. That's just creating a norm for them. That's what you do. So through the generations, this is what has become norm, and it has become so extreme that if you try to step outside that norm, you are shamed. And I know I face a lot of it, and I know you face a lot of it because you are pretty outspoken, so you get more people coming at you. But people literally think we are harming dogs by not poisoning them. I can't make sense of that, but they come at us accusing us of harming dogs because we're not poisoning them.
I have a pretty good following on social media, and I actually had a group not very long ago, just a few months ago, a whole ass group on Facebook, not only come after me, but they were calling my county on me,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, I live in Idaho, so there is no fucking mandates here. Like, this is why I live here, like even for dogs. It even says in our laws, it's just required. It's not mandated.
Well, the state of Idaho has no rabies law. It's
None.
by county. It's not,
County.
the state itself does not even have a law. So
yeah. And so I always wonder how counties can overstep state law, but
you got to wonder. We dealt with that in 2020,
yes, yeah.
So I think the jury's still out on the answer to that.
But I won't back down. Like, I don't care who you are. God put me here for a reason, and he's lit up that reason for me. And my passion is dog wellness. And either you like it or you don't. I'm not telling you have to like what I'm talking about and what I'm sharing, but if it sparks a little bit of interest of what we share on here, this is where you should tune into, because we are going to bring a lot of great information to everybody.
We are. And what would be your advice for people who say, this all makes sense to me, and I really want to implement this in my life, but I'm really scared about the mob coming after me. Like, people can be really nasty and really mean, and I don't know, call the county on you. Like, what do you think is some good advice to share with people that want to do this, but they're afraid, like, that they're going to get attacked?
I'm a hard ass. So, I'm not one of these people that will sugarcoat and coddle you to make you feel better. My number one is, you are your dog's advocate. There's nobody else for your dog. And if you can't stand up to protect the health of your dog, but allow other people to manipulate you to believe you're a bad parent, you have to reevaluate things of what is it that you want for your dog. Don't tell people what you're doing. Don't. It's none of their business anyways, what you're doing with your dog. And so when you start feeling more comfortable in feeding a species appropriate raw diet, when you start seeing the changes in your dog without using Western medicine with your dog, you will start finding courage and strength in the practices that you're doing, because you're seeing the outcomes you've been wanting. And I think that's where people will start building that, strengthening their backbone per se, when they're doing the work. Trying to be strong before you do the work is really hard for people. It's really, really hard for people because they don't have the confidence in what they're about to embark on.
Right.
So having people like Lisa and myself in your corner is like the number one thing you should have, because we will advocate with you. Now, am I telling you to get on social media and broadcast it to everybody and start a war with people that you don't know or go against the grain? Oh, but I will be there maybe in a group, or you listening here and you dropping questions and we're sharing answers to it. That's how you're going to build up the strength that you want. That's how I look at it.
Right.
How about
And
yourself?
I agree. So, one of the most important things you can do is you can learn as much as you can. And you and I have a lot of resources for that. So they don't just have to randomly find things on Google. Learn as
Which
much
is the
as you,
worst.
which is the worst. Learn and educate yourself as much as you can. Implement what you've learned. See the results in front of your eyes. And all of a sudden now you are very confident in why you're doing what you're doing. And it's much easier when you know why you're doing something, when you believe in something, it's much easier to stand up to people and it's much easier to defend the truth. And then also community. You have to have people who have walked this road before and who are currently on this road because we understand what it's like to go against the grain. And we're there to support you and we're there to help you and we're there to back you up. And, you know, um, you know, but the truth, once you truly understand the truth, it's, and
You can't unsee it. You can't undo it. You can't go back to the things that you did before. Like
right,
once you see everything in black and white, right? There's no more gray. It's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. And I don't care what the consequences are.
right.
I'm doing this for my dog. Like I see the difference. You go on a raw food diet, I'm telling you, within 30 days, you're going to see a completely different dog.
Oh, for sure. And and it's experiences like that all of a sudden you are now a believer and you are now an advocate and you are not so afraid to speak up and defend the truth and then eventually start spreading the truth and helping others as well. But yeah, so it's just, there's no need to be overwhelmed. It's the hardest part isn't learning what you need to do, it's unlearning what you've been
Yep.
taught. That's the hardest part
That's the
of
hardest part. The second hardest part to that is implementing what you're now learning.
right.
Doing the things that go against the grain, doing the things that you've been told is wrong, doing the things like if you do that, this is the consequences, even though those aren't the consequences. It's the consequences of if you stay on that same path that you're on right now, you're going to get the same return of a dog that you've been having for years on out. That's
Right.
that's the truth. There's
And
nothing different.
not only that, it's only going to get worse because
Yep.
with each generation of dogs, they are becoming more damaged
Yep.
and they are becoming susceptible to disease and early death at even younger ages than what they were 10 years ago, let
Yep.
alone 20, 30, 40 years ago. So we're running out of time here. Like people have to make changes and make them
Yep.
fast because dog generations are so short that that the damage is being done to them at a much faster rate than it is to humans.
Yeah.
And we don't have time to second guess, like people know, they know
Yeah.
in their gut, what is right. You cannot poison your way to health. And they know that.
Oh,
Um,
just like you can't work out, I don't care how much you work out if you still eat crappy food.
right.
It's the same thing. It's the
Right.
same thing. I walk my dog. I do this, but I'm still injecting them with toxicities and I'm still feeding them diseased animal dog cereal. And you still wonder why your dog is not doing well.
Right.
Like start connecting the dots, start removing some of those things. And it's being talked about more and more. It's not like you and I are in a dark cave giving this
No,
information. This is coming out more and more every year. And even
yes.
veterinarians some are changing their ways, right? Some of them are trying to lead in a different light than they have been for so many years because they've been taught to lead a certain way. That'll be a whole nother episode,
Right.
but for natural rearing, let's just go back to that. natural rearing.
Oh,
Just do the basics.
we forgot one very important piece of the natural rearing puzzle.
Did we
I
really?
We did. It just reminded me. Keeping them intact, keeping
Oh,
their
yeah.
hormones intact, which is
Yes.
again going right back to nature.
Yep.
The dogs in the wild are not removing their
Oh,
sex
you know
organs.
we're gonna get the haters for us saying that.
Oh, but that's one of the most important
The
parts is
most important.
believing the body the way God made it. He made every organ perfect to work with each other. And when you start removing organs, you're going to start having problems. Yeah, I'm. Uh, so keeping your dog intact. And
Yeah.
if you do need to prevent your dog from reproducing, there are alternatives. There are
Yeah.
vasectomies and ovary
Yeah.
sparing spays where they can keep the hormones but can't reproduce, so those are some important alternatives that are out available. But don't ever think that removing organs and removing hormones is going to give you a healthy dog.
Healthy dog, or their, you know what, their temperament's going to be better.
Their temperament's going to be worse.
I know, but I
You know
love the whole like, they're gonna calm
they're
down.
going to calm down.
If
Yes.
you cut their balls off, they're gonna calm down. I'm like, I don't know any man or animal that if you did this, because watch a steer. Okay, so if you don't know what a steer is, it's a bull that got its testicles removed within days of it being born. They are the naughtiest male cows out there. They get into everything. They're aggressive. I mean, like all the things. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Stop doing things to animals. Like I
Right.
get it for the steers because we're butchering them to eat them, but we're not going to eat our dogs. Okay,
well,
well,
well, there's some people. um, um, Not anymore. We're done eating the dogs after
yes, yes, yes.
the
In
party of
January,
yes,
in
the party is
January.
over. No more
Yeah.
eating the dogs.
Okay,
But
so let's share with our audience kind of like what are we bringing here to this platform? Okay, because we just shared our foundations of the natural rearing, our philosophy behind it, how we got here, what it looks like in a society. We gave them a whole bunch of little bits of our tidbits of things that we're going to talk about more in depth. So don't worry.
right,
If we talk about don't spade or neuter your dog, we're not just going to leave it at that. We're going to come
right.
back. We're going to really dive deep into it and share more information. Kibble, we're going to share more information about raw feeding, and vaccine,
Parvo,
all
vaccines.
the
We're going to
things,
dive
all the
into
things.
all of those things. This was just to give you an overall view of what it is that we're bringing to you here.
We're really excited. This is like Lisa and I are super passionate about raising healthy dogs
Yes.
naturally. Naturally. We could all say our dog is healthy, but she belongs to so many dog groups out there. And I'm going to tell you every day, hundreds of posts every day of the
Yes.
same thing. My dog was just diagnosed. My dog was just diagnosed. My dog was just diagnosed. Like, and or what dog food can they eat now because they won't eat X, Y, and Z anymore?
Yeah.
Like we're going through the dog kibble cereal, aisles now and trying to find the perfect one. You know why they don't eat it and why they have issues is because that's not species appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
So,
so here we are. We are going to have like, we'll have some notes down at the bottom, maybe a way for our listeners to ask us questions, give us ideas of what we could be talking about. But we have some great ideas of what we're bringing to this platform.
we
And
are,
I
and
think,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I said I think our listeners will be very excited about it.
Yes, because it's that we're going to be doing this podcast, but we're also we're in the works right now. We got a lot of things going on where we're going to have a much more comprehensive plan in place. So between websites and other tools that everybody's going to be able to utilize so that you can come to us in many different platforms and many different ways, and we'll have a lot of resources for you. So we have a lot of things in the works, but because we are both so passionate. We are both sick to our stomachs over seeing what we see every day, every single day, whether it's in real life with people we know, or whether it's online in these Facebook groups. We are absolutely sick by what we see. And we've been
We
working
know.
on.
Yeah, we know we can bring solutions to many, not thousands of dog parents. Like I
Yes.
know we can help change the direction of where this epidemic we are experiencing in the dog world, to change that for them. But
Right.
it takes one dog parent at a time, right?
And that's what I say. We're going to change the world one dog at a time. And it is my dream to one day to where this is normal to people, where it is not something that is fringe. It is not something that is looked at, um, where it's
It's
just
not
something weird. People,
taboo.
thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and that this is the norm, and that people that go out and poison their dogs on purpose are the ones that are looked at are weird, and those are the ones that are shunned, not us. So I really dream of a world where the dogs are able to be healthy and thriving as they once were, as they were meant to be.
Okay, so I'm just going to share a little bit about when our podcast will be launching. So, it'll be twice a month on Thursdays. We'll have this one actually comes out on November 13th, I believe. Do you know the date? I know whatever that
I
Thursday
will
is.
verify that with you for
And
you.
then the next one will be on Thanksgiving. And so that
November 14th is the
14th.
Thursday, November 14th.
Okay. And then on Thanksgiving, our second podcast will be out. And our next podcast will be about raw feeding and kibble. So you'll
Correct.
really want to stay tuned to that one and listen to all the great information Lisa and I are going to be bringing to the
we're
table.
we're going to bring a lot of truths about that, and we're going to dispel a lot of myths, and we're really going to bring to the surface a lot of things that the food company tries to suppress, and things that they don't want you to know. So you're going to be getting a lot of information from us on that, and again, what that in natural rearing, Lorena and I said that the number one most important thing in natural rearing is their diet. So you have to start there. So you're definitely going to hear what we have to say about this.
Yep. Well, thank you for spending this time with us today. We're looking forward to talking and sharing again with all of our listeners. And hey, if there's a sponsor out there somewhere, please come and contact us. We might like to put you out there. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.